Okay. No. All right. Shalom. I believe we're live. I'm waiting to see evidence of it right here. So once I see evidence, then I will say hello. All I see right now is blueberries on my screen, my little thumbnail. So there I am. Okay. All right. I just have changed things up here in the studio this week for the Happy Hippie Hebrew Girls show. So do better next time. Some people say I'm a perfectionist. Well, you know, ask my husband. I suppose I am on some level. All right. I just know what we get criticized for, and people criticize each other over the stupidest things. So, all right, enough of that. This is just a reading I wanted to do. I want to keep reading in the scriptures. I want to read where Yahshua was between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So last time I read where Yahshua was on Yom Kippur, and we found out he was transfigured on that day. So I'm going to pick up where we left off and just read a little bit. As I said, I've changed the studio up, and this is actually, it is stinky. It's like wallpaper stuff, and super strong. So I actually like have an instant headache with this stuff back here. So I'm just still figuring things out. So whenever you show up for whatever I'm doing live, you're gonna be like surprised. Okay. So, and hey, look at that. See, I need like a hairdresser. There we go. Okay. And I'd like to say hello to those near and far. Yehovah Elohim, I just want to read your word, and we're just going to find out what Yahshua was up to between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So be with us here as we study your words and your son's life. Amen. Okay, so again, I am reading to you from the chronological Gospels. I have a link below, or I will have a link below for you to go purchase this. It's not my book by any means, and I'm not officially sponsoring him by any means, but I'm not receiving anything. I don't want anything. I just want to tell you this is an amazing resource, and I love it. So it comes in a smaller size. This is the big print size. The Chronological Gospels, the Acceptable Year of the Lord, the Life and 70-Week Ministry of the Messiah. Not a 3-year ministry. No. Do your study, people. Okay. So we're going to read, and I'm just going to tell you the verses, and hopefully we'll be doing this together, right? Okay. I feel like I've got a big... I feel like I'm a storyteller. Okay, so let's read. Okay, Yahshua heals a child possessed with a demonic spirit. The 11th day of the 7th month, the year 4027 from creation, Wednesday, October 1st, 27 CE, Common Era. Error. All right. Matthew 17:14 through 18 is what we're going to start with. It says, when Yahshua approached the crowd, a certain man came to him and kneeling down to him said, Master, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed. For oft times he falls into the fire and oft into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not heal him. Then Yahshua replied, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I have to endure you? Bring him here to me. Yahshua rebuked the demon, and it departed out of him, and the child was healed immediately. All right. Wow. Okay. Let's look at. I think. Oh, there is no commentary on this. I wish there was. Actually, this is a super interesting situation here, and I have heard some teachings on it and stuff, but let's just read Mark's account here. Mark 9:14 says, when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the sages questioning them. Straightway, when all the people beheld him, they were greatly amazed and ran to him and saluted him. Yahshua asked the sages, why do you question them? One of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought to you my son who has a dumb spirit. Wherever he takes him, he tears him. He foams at the mouth and gnashes with his teeth and pines away. Oh, how sad. I asked your disciples if they would cast him out, but they could not. He answered him, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer with you? Bring him here to me. So they brought the boy to Yahshua, and when he saw him, immediately the spirit tore him, and he wallowed on the ground and foamed at the mouth. Yahshua asked his father, how long has he been in this condition? He said, since he was a child. Often it cast him into the fire and into the waters in an attempt to destroy him. If you can do anything, please have compassion on us and help us. Yahshua said to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to those who do believe. Immediately the father of the child cried out, Master, I believe. Please help my unbelief. Wow. When Yahshua saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit. You dumb and deaf spirit, I command you to come out of him and return into him no more. The spirit cried out and rent him sore and came out of him, and he was left as dead. Many said, he is dead. But Yahshua took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. Oh, yeah. He was probably just so exhausted. He was just catching his breath. But, all right, there's one more account here. It's Luke 9:37, starting in Luke 9:37. On the next day, when they came down from a hill, many people met him. And a man of the company cried out, Master, I beseech you, look at my son. He is my only child. A spirit takes him suddenly, and he cries out, and it tears him, and he foams at the mouth, and it bruises him severely, and then it departs from him. I besought your disciples to cast him out, and they could not. Yahshua answered, O faithful and faithless and perverse generation. Let me start that again. O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you and tolerate you? Bring your son here. As he was coming, the demon threw him down and tore him. Yahshua rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child and returned to him his father. And they were amazed at the mighty power of Yahovah. Okay, so this is like a huge story, and I'm no means gonna say that I understand the whole thing, because the disciples couldn't get rid of this demon. Yahshua is rebuking them because they could not. And I know that he goes on to discuss this a little bit, but just looking at this face value right here, let's just look at the facts here. A child had a demon in him. The disciples couldn't get rid of the demon. And then Yahshua rebukes the disciples for not being able to get rid of the demon. And then Yahshua takes control and he gets rid of the demon. Super interesting, because how many of us have come into situations where there is evil, either evil presence or evil inside of someone, or evil that got left on your couch when somebody came in and dropped it there and then took off, and you have chaos in your house afterwards, or after they left you have chaos in your house, or there's demon possession all over the place. You can see it, you know it. It's not all sickness, it's demon possession. And I so want to, look at it and cast it out. And how many of us sometimes can and sometimes can't. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's a super crazy situation that is recorded here. And let's see if there's clarity that Yahshua brings, because I know the disciples come to him and say, what happened? So let's look here. It's event 122. Yeshua's disciples questioned him in a private residence. So Matthew 17:19-21 says, Then the disciples came to Yahshua apart from the crowd and said, Why could we not cast him out? Yahshua said to them, because of your unbelief. Truth I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, move from here and go there, and it shall move. Nothing shall be impossible for you. However, this kind of demon does not go out without prayer and fasting. Interesting. So and let's go Mark. The other account is in Mark 9:28-29 says, when Yahshua came into the house, his disciples asked him privately, why could we not cast him out? And he said to them, this kind can come forth only by prayer and fasting. Wow. Okay, so here we see that this demon was stubborn, and the only way it was going to come out was by prayer and fasting. So that tells us something. Number one, that there's different things that we need to do in order to have power like Yahshua, but also that Yahshua was praying and fasting. So he had to be fasting right then. If he was going to say that this demon doesn't come out without prayer and fasting, then he had to be fasting at that moment to be doing this, to having success at it. So, you know, this is a crazy story, and because of your unbelief. I've heard that the mustard seed, you know, if you have faith with mustard seed, then you can say this mountain move. And I've heard that the understanding of what mountain is basically dynamic forces sort of thing. It's not the actual mountain, the, you know, dirt and rocks, but like the mountains of evil sort of thing. That we can move those with using his name, using his power, but sometimes it requires prayer and fasting. So I think that's a huge topic that I am in no way like an authority on to teach on, because I don't know. I want to learn how. I've definitely had success in this area through the power of Yahshua and through his blood, and using that in spiritual warfare prayer. So I do know how to pray spiritual warfare prayer, and have totally used the great weapon of Yeshua's blood to come between us and all things, and have seen Yahovah, the power of Yahovah, cast away things like this. But definitely want to see it more in the body, more in my own life as well as yours. So let's keep going. Event 123. This stuff is actually making my eyes water. Oh my gosh, I gotta take it outside. So next time you see me, this may not be here. All right, 123. Yahshua speaks of his death and resurrection as they travel toward his home in Kippur. 11th day of the 7th month, 4027 from creation, Wednesday, October 1st. So this is the same day. Matthew 17:22-23 says, while they abode in Galilee, Yahshua said to them, the Son of Man shall be betrayed into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and on the third day he shall be raised again. And they greatly sorrowed. I wonder if they knew at that point. Okay, Mark 9:30-32 says, as they departed from there, they passed through Galilee, and he did not want any man to know, because he was teaching his disciples. And he said to them, the Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and after he is dead he shall rise the third day. But they did not understand that saying, and they were afraid to ask him. All right, Luke has an account here. Luke 9:43. While everyone wondered at the things that Yahshua did, he said this to his disciples, let these words sink deep into your ears. The Son of Man shall be delivered into the hands of men. But they did not understand the saying, and its meaning was hid from them. They could not comprehend it, and they were afraid to ask the meaning of it. Probably afraid because they didn't want to know that, yeah, this was going to be a bad time for Yahshua, huh? All right, let's see. I'm trying to get comfortable here. So before I had that table, right? And now I've like, how do I get comfortable here and read? If yeah, you might see me in a different location next time. We'll see. All right. Event 124. So this is, again, remember, we're talking about what's between what Yahshua is doing between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Okay. So I know the fall feasts are over right now for those that are watching real time live, but and I wanted to do this all during the fall feast, but I was celebrating the fall feast, so here we are. We're doing it when we can. All right. Let me put that. Yeah, that stuff stinks. All right. Event 124. The disciples arrive in Kippur, and Yahshua teaches. 11th day of the month, 4027 from creation, October 1st. So this is still the same day. Matthew 17:24 to 18:35 says, when they came to Kippur, those who received tribute money came to Kepha and said, those tax collectors, does not your master pay tribute? He said, yes. When Kepha came into the house, Yahshua prevented him. What were you thinking, Shimon? Tell me. Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? From their own children or of strangers? Kepha said to him, so Kepha is Peter, remember? And so Kepha was outside with the tax collector, and the tax collector stopped Kepha, or Peter, and said, hey, does your rabbi pay taxes? And Peter said, yeah. And then he comes in, and he's going to bypass Yahshua, and Yahshua stops him, probably grabs him by the arm and says, what were you thinking? It's like, who do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? From their own children or strangers? Kepha said to him, from strangers. Yahshua said to him, then the children are free from this. I can't wait. Notwithstanding, lest we should now offend them over this trivial issue, go to the lake, cast in a hook, and take the first fish that comes up. When you open his mouth, you shall find a piece of money, and that take and give to them for me and you. So as you can see, he's like, he doesn't feel beholden to the government, because he's like, I'm the king's son and I don't pay taxes. You know, that sort of idea. And I think he was trying to put forth a bigger concept there. But then he's like, because the children are free from paying taxes, right? And I know it's so much more huge than just paying taxes to Caesar. This is much bigger than that. But the idea that he's like, okay, but we don't need to make a big deal about this right now. So he's going to choose his battles wisely. I like that. So he picks his battles. And he's like, go ahead and just go get a fish. I've put some money in there for you to pay for me for. I think that's cool. All right. Matthew 18, starting at verse 1, has the same account. Let's read it. At that time, the disciples came to Yahshua, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Is this the same? Yeah, this is the same. Okay, so it might not be the very same, but it's the same time. So he's teaching on many different things here. Okay. Yahshua called, at that time, disciples came to him, said, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Yahshua called a little child to him and said, set him in the midst of them and said, truth I say to you, unless you are changed and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whoever shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever shall receive one such little child in my name receives me. Wow, I just got to stop there for a second. So he says, unless we are changed and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Like, wow. Change to become as little children. What does that mean? Well, look at a little child and look at all the things that a little child is. You know, they're trusting, they love unconditionally, they're like free in their heart, they're childlike, they're innocent, they love daddy, they love mommy, they trust daddy, they trust mommy, they jump, right? They jump into like daddy's hands. So standing up on the side of the pool, little kid will just fling himself out, you know, to let daddy catch him. What else is about a little child that's so cool? They're just filled with wonder and awe. They'll go with daddy and mommy. They don't fight that. They don't like, you know, do the teenager thing. They're like, they want to go on adventures with mom and dad, and they obey. Hey, they obey if the family's, you know, got its structure set up right, and you've got a good mommy and a good daddy, then you've got discipline going on, and the child will allow, you know, mommy and dad, not just allow, the child will accept mommy and daddy's discipline and obey, and not have to, you know, the child, they're not in charge. They're not running things, you know. And they're okay with that. Their boundaries, they have, you know, their circle. I used to say, like with my daughters, you know, their circle, if they were disobeying, their circle got really small, as in around me. They had to like stay really close to me. If they wandered off too far, the circle got too big, too fat, then they had to come back into a smaller circle around me, kind of thing. Just that whole, the boundaries a child needs. Boundaries. And someday I'm gonna be a little old lady, and I'm gonna walk around, and I'm gonna, like, you know, bang parents on the head who, like, allow their 2-year-old to tell them what to do and when to leave an event and when to, and parents who let their kids flop on the floor and scream and cry in a grocery store. You know what? I just can't wait till I'm a little old lady. I'm gonna take my cane and I'm gonna thunk them over the head. Not the kid. I'm gonna thunk the parent. You know, just, oh, it drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely batty. Anyway, where was I? Tangent, Rebecca. Okay, so just think for a minute about what that's important. That's a huge statement. I could stop right here, and this is huge to consider. Like, what are the characteristics of a little child? Because Yahshua takes a little child and he puts him right in the middle of all the adults sitting there in the room, and he's like, consider the child. You know, unless you become like this little child, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. That's huge. You won't get the happily ever after if you're not like a child. What does that mean? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I have got to say this. Okay. Oh. Okay. People that come into this movement, the Hebraic, the Messianic, Melchizedek, just the Hebraic movement away from man-made religion out. And they're, you know, Hebrews basically, who are turning from the pagan worship over, you know, turning from Christmas and Easter and all that jazz. And hold on, I knew that was gonna happen. Okay, so as I was saying, so people who come in, I've met so many people who have said, who say, oh, I'm just a child, I'm just a baby in this. And so, you know, they're 30 to 80 years old, 20 to 80 years old, whatever, and they have been through, you know, Christianity or whatnot, and they're coming out, and so they'll say, I am just a baby, so teach me. I'm just a child, so teach me. And you know what it dawned on me this morning was that when anybody says that, I'm going to go, you know, talk to the sparkle, talk to the hand, because I'm not going to listen to you, because you know what's going to happen is the baby grows up, is what I've understood, to what I've seen from experience. The baby grows up, the child grows up, and then the child will bite the hand that fed them. Yeah, that child will turn right back around and say, you know, you who helped me understand this way were wrong in this and this and this and this. I don't need you anymore. Go to blankety blank, and I'm good without you. That is what is a tendency in this movement. I am not kidding. And it's pathetic, people. So if you have been saying, I'm just a baby, I'm just a child, if you've been saying that to people who are mentoring you and feeding you, and then you grow up at some point to the point where you're like now better than them, think again, think again, think again, think again. Look at what Yahshua said. Unless you become like a little child, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So a little child stays, the idea is like staying little, right? Not growing up into a bratty teenager. That's what I think these people, I think what happens is these people become bratty teenagers. So they're happy to suckle from you. They're happy to nurse from you while they're a baby, and they're claiming baby. And then, man, they grow up and they'll turn right around and you know, dishonor the hand that fed them. So super sad. And I'm sorry if you're one of those that has had that happen. But if you're one on the other side, if you're you know, claim baby and then grown up and hurt people. You've got some apologizing, some apologizing to do, and asking forgiveness. All right, let's keep going. And then he goes on to talking about how to treat a child. Whoever, in verse 6, whoever offends one of these little ones who believes in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hung around his neck and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses. Yes, offenses must come, but woe to the man by whom the offense comes. Therefore, if your hand or foot offends you, cut them off and cast them from you. It is better for you to enter into life maimed or lame, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the fires of, I don't know how to say that, Gihonim? Gi'inom? I'm not sure. I'm sure it's fires of hell. If your eye offends you, pluck it out, cast it from you. If it is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into the hellfire. Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones. And remember, he's got the little child sitting right in front of him, so he's speaking with this little child in there as a, what do you call, prop, I guess. He's probably got the child on his knee, I would imagine. Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones. I say to you that in heaven their guardian angels continually behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, cool. So they're guardian angels. So the idea that we have an angel. Hey, that actually is right here. That a guardian angel. At least the children have guardian angels. I think we all do, but that's really wonderful. And just remember, when, you know, if you're a jerk and you're hurting children, just remember that the guardian angel of that child sees the face of the Father continually. Yeah. And if you're hurting a child, you will be cast into the lake of fire. This is what Yahshua said. So knock it off if you are. If you're loving little children and you take care of them, then Papa will smile on you. All right. I'm not going to go there. Not anymore. Okay. Now, verse 11. The Son of Man has come to save that which was lost. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, does he not leave the 99 and go into the mountains and seek that which has gone astray? If he finds it, truth I say to you, he rejoices more for that one sheep than for the 99 which did not stray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. Moreover, if your brother shall trespass against you, go and tell him his fault between... Okay, so he's kind of... It feels like he's jumping a little bit between different thoughts, different teachings, but... So he rejoices more for one sheep. So he's talking about going after the one sheep, and he came to save that which was lost, which definitely is, he's definitely also talking about the scattered, the lost, the scattered sheep there. Ephraim, Israel. It is not the will of your Father that one of these little ones should perish. Okay. Then... Verse 15, moreover, if your brother shall trespass against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. Man, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? if you have a problem with somebody, wouldn't it be nice? If somebody had a problem with you, if they just came to you nicely and said, hey, can we chat this? Can we talk this out? Something's wrong. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh. If he shall hear you, you have gained your brother. Yea, but if he will not hear you, then take with you 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. So, yes, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Is if we learned how to do that. People, if you have a problem with each other, go personally to that person. Don't text. Do not text. Do not email. Do not message. Do not use Messenger. You know, if you have to use FaceTime, I suppose, but go in person and face to face and say lovingly in a very way that's going to communicate in a way that, in a manner that's going to get a good result. And don't, you know, don't vomit on them. Don't, you know, don't throw a ton of vinegar on there. You know, go humbly and say, this is a problem. Can we talk about this? And hopefully you can come to a resolution. And if you can't, then take another person with you, or two other people. Hello, why can't we learn to do this? I don't know. Maybe you guys are. My experience has not been quite as polished as this, but hopefully we will do this. You know, when people have issues with me, I don't seem to. This isn't the process people use. Okay. Verse 17. If he shall neglect to hear them, so if the person that offended you neglects to hear all of you, like if you bring other people with you, if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it to the kihila, or the assembly, the bigger group, and let him be the same to you as a heathen or a publican. Woo! Okay, so if he won't accept, or she, whatever, won't accept the advice, counsel, whatever, and doesn't repent, then you're supposed to treat them as a heathen or a publican. So the idea of cast out, basically. Oof. I can't wait till we have like an assembly that is operating with the new and quality love that Yahshua has come to give, because this would be a great way to deal with the issues that we all seem to come across if we just did what he said, right? Okay, verse 18. Truth I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say to you, if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them by the Father in heaven, by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. And we a lot of us know that verse well and probably have it memorized. But yeah, if we agree, there's more of us that agree, then that's cool. But he's not talking about the prosperity gospel, people. He's not saying you can claim $1 million with, you know, another person and then get it. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, I believe in context of all this, he's talking about, you know, getting rid of demons and foul spirits, that sort of thing. He's also talking about, as you see later, he's also talking about getting the Ruach HaKodesh. That is what you can ask for sure. And be sure and get. Papa will never he'll never withhold the Ruach HaKodesh, as you'll see later in his teachings, or earlier. No, it's later. I think I can't remember. Anyway, but this is not teaching the prosperity gospel. Okay. All right, verse 21. Then Kepha came to him and said, Master, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? 7 times? Yahshua said to him, I say not to you 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a certain king, which took an account of his servants. I gotta say, I love that. I was just listening to John Eldridge's and Gary Barkalow's CD on Journey of Desire, and it's so cool because I love how John Eldridge says, you know, here's the king who comes, and he's got, you know, he's only got a certain amount of time to like download these disciples with, like, you know, how this whole thing works, like save the world kind of thing. And what does he do? He tells stories, because stories will stay in your heart. Stories are what we remember. And like John says, you know, nobody's gonna remember a phone book. So even though the phone book, so John's like, in his little presentation, he starts reading from the phone book, and, you know, he's lost his audience when he's like halfway down the page. Even though everything he read was true and he never lied to you, it's like, you can't remember just facts. The story is, Yahshua knew that the heart would remember story. And that's what he's doing here when he says the kingdom is like, he's telling, this is a story. I'm going to attach this truth to a story so it lodges in your heart. And also because he was also still doing doing his mission covertly, in the sense of he had to like get to the end. He had to become the sacrifice without Hasatan, really meddling to like ruin get in the way. Basically, he had to. He was doing sabotage. He was like Navy SEAL kind of thing, and had to finish the job before it all could be understood. So he put a lot of things into code, basically, things that were really important for people that his father was going to give eyes to see to, so they could actually understand what he was saying. But yeah, several reasons why he did that, and I'm sure there's more. All right. Stop saying so stinks. I want to like get it out of here. Okay. All right. So Yahshua said to him, I say not to you 7 times, but 7 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a certain king which took an account of his servants. When he began to reckon, one was brought to him who owned him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he had nothing with which to pay, his master commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant fell down and begged him, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. The master of the servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. He laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me all that you owe. Then his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, Have patience with me, I will pay you all. But he refused, and he cast him into prison until he paid the full debt. When his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told to their master all that was done. Then his master called him and said, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, even as I have had pity on you? His master was wroth, and he delivered him unto the slave masters until he paid all that was due him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also to you, if you from your hearts do not forgive every one of his brother's trespasses. Wow. Wow. So, forgiveness is very important to Yahshua. So, Yahweh the Father forgives us. And if we don't forgive each other, then we are not sons and daughters of the King. We're operating with another father, right? That doesn't mean that you can't be hurt. It doesn't mean you can't, that doesn't mean you have to be a doormat and let that, whoever was it that hurt you over and over and over, doesn't mean that you have to be a doormat or let them continue hurting you. You know, boundaries are good, you know, but letting go of the pain and the hurt and moving on, you know, he knows that it's not only imperative to the story here and to operate in that other-centered love, but also for your own health, your mental health, right? He knows how he made you. Oh. Oh my. Okay. Okay, let's keep going here. Sorry about that. Mark 9:33. Yahshua came to Capharnaum, and when he was in the house, he asked his disciples, What was it that you disputed among yourselves along the way? But they held their peace, for along the way they had disputed among themselves who should be the greatest. He sat down and called the 12 and said to them, If any man desire to be the greatest, he shall make himself last of all and servant of all. Then he took a child and set him in the midst of them, and when he had taken him in his arms, he held the child. He said to them, Whoever shall receive one such child in my name receives me, and whoever shall receive me receives shall receive me. He receives not me, but him that sent me. So if you love a child, you're going to love Yahshua, and you're ultimately going to love Yahuwah Elohim. Okay. Yohanan answered, Master, we saw one casting out demons in your name, and he does not follow us, so we forbade him because he does not follow us. But Yahshua said, do not forbid him, for there is no man who can do a miracle in my name that can readily revile me. Man, what does that mean? But Yahshua said, do not forbid him, for there is no man who can do a miracle in my name that can readily revile me. He that is not against us is on our side. Whoever gives you a cup of water to drink in my name, because you belong to Messiah, truth I say to you, he shall not lose his reward. Whoever shall offend one of these little ones that believes in me, it is better for him that a millstone were hung about his neck and he was cast into the sea. And then he goes into, if your hand offends you, then cut it off. So that idea of whoever shall offend one of these little ones that believes in me should basically be killed. Interesting, because he's talking about the little child now, and a little child, like, I don't know, something was a long time, it was a while ago. I was talking to the ladies about the idea that, you know, part of the sin of an Ezer Kenegdo is to lead not only, well, the family, but the children to worship other gods. So you teach their child when they're really little to love Christmas and love Easter and love all these other holidays, and you're attaching their heart to these other holidays that are serving other gods, and in that doing, you have turned the child's head and towards pagan gods instead of towards Papa, and that's huge. That's an awful sin, something that many of us have done in our past and didn't know it, and now we are, you know, repenting and trying hard to undo the damage that we have done. And unfortunately, sometimes the child is old now and they're an adult and they have to, you know, figure it out themselves. But how huge is this? But also if you notice back here that Yahweh said, Yahshua made it very clear that Yahweh forgives, right, the debt of our sins. So as a mom and a dad, if we have let our children be attached to pagan worship before in the past, and now we've repented, and our kids are now old and they're going to do what they want to do, we can go to Yehovah and we can ask forgiveness, and he will forgive us for those sins of teaching our children the wrong way. And then we can watch him go after our children and save them and give them eyes to see and ears to hear, so that they also will repent, right? So it's a beautiful system, I would say, that Papa has set up so that we can be forgiven for, you know, just over and over if we repent and come to him, and then and he will go after those we have led astray, right? And then we'll work for him, trying to help in that process, right? So anyway, side note. Okay, let's keep going. I like that. He that is not against us is on our side. Interesting. Okay, verse 43 again. If your hand offends you, cut it off. It is better for you to enter into life maimed than having two hands go into hell, into the fire that never be quenched, where their worm dies not and the fire is not quenched. If your foot offends you, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life than having And we already read all that. Everyone will be seasoned with fire, just as every sacrifice is seasoned with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost its saltiness, how will you season your sacrifice? Ah! That's your sacrifice is in italics, so it's something that was something that the team added to this. I believe have salt in yourselves and have peace with one another. Okay, so there's two things there that are super cool. Everyone will be seasoned with fire. Okay, that's huge, and because we're all going to be the idea of the all-consuming fire is Yehovah Elohim, and we all have to withstand the all-consuming fire. And so the idea of going through the fire and getting purged of all the stuff that won't stand in a fire, that's the whole idea. Is like when you go through all this trauma and hard times and whatnot, a lot of times that is Papa giving us little at a time opportunity to become refined in the fire, you know, so not so much that you're destroyed, but just enough so that you can get rid of all the chaff and all the stuff that will not survive the final all-consuming fire when he comes through, you know. So that refinement's so important, so that you're just pure metal, so that you're, you know, just pure silver or gold and can go through that fire and withstand that and go on the other side. That's what he's talking about here, I believe. And there's so many more scriptures that talk about that, where Yah is the all-consuming fire, and that's our when we go through tribulation and trial, we are experiencing, you know, that, you know, being hammered silver, going through the pain of being refined, so that when the all-consuming fire that end judgment comes, we will be able to stand on the other side when it passes by. Huge, you know. And he prophesies, he says that's going to happen. So the other thing here is salt makes things like taste good, right? So if you don't basically taste good, in the sense of if your celebrations, if your life, if how you live your life is just blah, who, you know, it basically is pointless, right? Let's see what this I don't know what that was. I didn't mean that pointless. What I meant is, if the salt has lost its saltiness, how will your he's saying is, how will you season your sacrifice? In another place, Yahshua talks about, you know, salt, it would be just, you know, it's no good anymore, and you just throw it out on the road for the, you know, cars to run on top of. So the idea is we're salt, and we're supposed to salt the earth with his love and his generosity and his creativeness and his beauty and his strength and his character, and we're supposed to salt everything, right? And so I encourage you to be salt, just like Yahshua is encouraging us to be salt. Be salt, to be flavorful. Hello. Too many. Don't be dull. Don't be a bore. Okay. Luke 9:46. There's so much more to that. I know. I'm supposed to just be reading. Focus, Rebecca. Okay. Just reading. All right. Luke 9:46. Then there arose a question among them as to which of them should be the greatest. So Yahshua, perceiving the thought in their heart, took a child, set him by him, and said to them, whoever shall receive the child in my name receives me, and whoever shall receives me receives him that sent me. He that is least among you all, he shall be great. And Yohanan answered, Master, we saw one casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not. What? This feels like randomness. Like, can we finish a thought here? The disciples take him off onto something else to talk about. Okay, so he's talking about receiving the child. He's talking about those that are least among you shall be the greatest. So one that is humble, the one who is a servant, shall in the end be the greatest, and vice versa. And then he's talking, Yohanan says, we saw one casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us. Yahshua said, do not forbid him, for he that is not against us is for us. So, that's cool. That's cool. So we saw one casting out demons in your name, we forbade him because he does not follow us. Don't forbid him, for he that is not against us is for us. So, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so, yeah. I think you can figure it out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close. We will, we will read a little more. There's some more days here. So we're only to the 11th day of the 7th month. Wednesday, October. So we're still on the same day. That was still the very same day. So we only read one day. The day after. Yeah, we only read the day after Yom Kippur. And that was a lot right there. So we'll read. It actually had. There's actually. Oh, here. Tell you what. No. I'll pick up here because otherwise I'll forget. So one more event on that same day. And then we will read the next 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and then we will continue with where he was during Sukkot. So again, chronological Gospels, awesome. You need one. Puts Yeshua's life in chronological order, and it feels like a story instead of kind of randomness. So anyway, so I hope that you're having a great evening. That you had actually, it's a new moon day. It is the 8th new moon today. Last night we saw the 8th new moon in the year 6018 or 2018, and I think it's October 11. So I hope that you've had some time to set apart today so that you could celebrate and get on Papa's rhythm, right? All right. I think that's all I need to do. I know that's pretty, but I'm not sure if the stinky. I don't know. I don't do good with like chemicals. I'm soft tissue. I can't do chemicals, right? I plan to live to 120. I've got too much to do for the king, and that glue is too much. So anyway, I hope you have a good prep day tomorrow and get ready for Shabbat and rest according to the commandments, right? All right. Yeah, that's all. I will see you later. Let me, whoops, where is this? There it is. Do it this way. Bye-bye.